All right, welcome everybody to the podcast. And today we have Akiva Silver with us. One of his major books is Trees of Power. We're talking about trees and how to use them specifically on the homestead. So join us as we kind of dive into this world of trees. Okay, yeah, Akiva. So give us a little bit of quick history of like how did you get into the world of trees?
Well, I was really into, I was pretty young when I got really interested in wilderness survival and primitive skills, and I just kind of dove into that pretty hard and didn't really look back and just kind of went for it and decided I was going to live nothing above Stone Age technology. And I
Oh,
just kind of rebuked civilization and spent as much time as possible in the woods and learned from some really amazing people. And I just really thought of wilderness as the kind of epitome, like the only pure thing, the only thing I really wanted to be around. And but in doing that, I spent a lot of time in nature, and I would spend thousands of hours sitting still and observing. It's just in the process of becoming in tune and learning to hunt with primitive technology and stuff. You have to become extremely silent. And the more I observed, like as I got better at tracking and hearing bird song and stuff, I started to realize that like the most biodiversity, the most life was actually not in these deep untouched wilderness areas, but it was actually in like the edges of civilization. Like if I would go in a vacant lot or something, or like this strip of brush behind a Walmart, or in next to highways, like in the suburbs. That's where I was seeing not just like, oh, it's like there's some birds here. It would be like 10 times the number of mammals and birds I would be able to see and get close to. I'd see more plant diversity, more food to forage and collect as far as like wild fruit and stuff than if I was in like Alaska or the Rocky Mountains or the Adirondacks or something. If I was in some wilderness area where it was untouched by people for the most part, was not nearly as much abundance. And so I started to realize, maybe it's not like the way I think it is. Maybe people aren't necessarily bad for nature. And I could see that we've like accidentally created all this habitat. And
Mm.
I started thinking, well, what if we did that on purpose? And and so then I just kind of got really excited about planting magnetic trees that draw wildlife in. Like I don't want to just plant like a bunch of like a big spruce plantation or something. I
yeah.
wanted to plant trees that would change an ecosystem and make it more alive. And I've seen like I wrote about in my book this huge stand of red maples in Pennsylvania that I was camping. This was thousands of acres of only red maple, with at least 99% of the tree species was red maple, and there was almost no birds there. And I could see from what happened that area had been logged and reseeded. The red maples had just kind of seeded in at the right time. And I thought, what if at that time of disturbance, someone had come in and just put in like a handful of apple trees, or
Mm.
a handful of oaks? It would have made a totally different world there. And so I just got excited about finding disturbed areas and putting those key species in the right place at the right time, and just changing the world
Wow.
that way. And I don't
I
know,
feel like
just
you're
got,
the Johnny Appleseed of today, like the Johnny Tree Seed, just generally.
I
Like,
don't know. He was way cooler. He was way more hardcore than me too. I don't know, if you ever read about Jonathan Chapman, he was a real person, and he was an
yeah,
extreme person.
yeah, he was like a fringe guy.
Yeah,
That's a
he
good
was
one.
a religious zealot, and like
Yeah.
he he has some very extreme practices and views. I thought he was a real cool hero.
That's interesting.
Well, you mentioned some of the mentors you had, and I think just even reading the cover of your book and the intro with Sam Thayer, I mean, you have some really incredible people touting your work. So I'm just curious, like, what role they've played in the tree realm, and how did you learn, sort of, where did you get your basic knowledge other than just or is observation really it? I mean, was that, you're just like, oh, that tree is amazing?
No, I mean, I was just like, I didn't know anything when I first got interested, and I first went to I read a book by Tom Brown Jr.
Mm-hmm.
and then I went to his school. He does like a wilderness tracker school, and that was like completely new world to me. And from there, I met a lot of people. I went to this place called Hawk Circle in New York State, where I learned from Ricardo Sierra. And then I just met like a lot of just people living off the grid completely. You know, people who had renounced money and a lot of them didn't even. They kind of had forgotten their real names. They just had like code names because they were actually. I didn't even know people like this existed, but they were. You know, they did a lot of monkey wrenching and stuff, and so they were living under the radar, but they knew an incredible amount about nature and how to live with these trees. And then, you know, after meeting people like that and learning some of these skills, a lot of it really was just spending a lot of time observing and foraging. Mm-hmm. And Sam Thayer's books were huge in getting me going on foraging. And
yeah, we got his first book, and I'm just like, this is I mean, it's not his first book. It's the first book to us a couple of months ago, and it's just like a Bible of everything out in nature. I mean, it's incredible. Yeah, the knowledge that he has, expansive. And also from what I know several people who know him personally, and he seems like a really, really great individual that everybody likes. So that's a bonus.
Yeah, definitely. He's a good person.
You hit me with like a key phrase. Like, I was just talking about holistic management last night, and the big phrase there is like, for grazing, is like the right place at the right time. Mm-hmm. And you said that same phrase for like planting trees, and it's just like a really interesting thing within nature, because like this lady was talking to me where they had a forestry mulcher come in and like mulch their woods, and then she left for a year. And when she got back, she was like, it was worse than it was when it was mulched. And we just had like our property logged, and it, like, when you said that, it really got me thinking of like, man, we need to get in there while it's like opened up and really plant the appropriate trees. Like, what in the Southeast United States, what do you think, like, if you have to pick key species, what would you put into a brand new, essentially it's like a blank slate at this point. We left like probably 30% canopy cover, but
with the goal of grazing, obviously.
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously going to be site dependent, but there are some species you have like an open area and the soil is like halfway decent. You know, not, you know, I mean, there's so many different sites, right? There's swamps and there's ridges, and then there's just, you know, in between. So like if it's just like normal ground, I think persimmons in the Southeast are huge, like have to be incorporated. Persimmons are a real pioneer species that colonizes old fields down south, and like I can't even imagine not planting a lot of persimmons if I was down there. Honey locust is another one, especially for grazing, and mulberry. I mean, if you're going to be grazing, I think mulberry and persimmon and oak and honey locust. Those four would just be tremendous, and along with chestnut. But you can put grass under all those trees as long as you're not planting extremely densely, and then you'll have a great mass. So if you have mulberry fruiting from, let's say in the South, probably late May all the way through September, and then you're going to be leading into your honey locusts, your acorns, and your chestnuts, and then finally your persimmons. You've got massed on the ground for, from basically May through December. That's a long time to have massed dropping and grass at the same time.
Do you when you
I'm sure there's
arrange
another one.
Yeah. When you arrange trees like that, do you kind of stick with like the permaculture idea of like guilds, or what's your thoughts on, like, do you just kind of plop them around, or
I am not a very organized human being, and I like to just kind of do things intuitively.
yeah.
So when I look at a piece of land, I just kind of I get like a sense of thing. I'm like, oh, I feel like there should be a bunch of chestnuts over there. Like I could just feel like they want to be there. I know that's not a very good answer, but
No, that's a great answer.
Perfect
I'm not.
answer.
Really don't think. Like I think if you are having trouble like figuring stuff out where it should go, just really observe um, where things work when they're left on their own. Like when you're driving around and stuff, wherever you go, just always be looking at what species are where, and you'll see, oh, I see how like oaks congregate on these like dry hillsides, and I see that maples are doing this, and and you kind of get a sense of where things want to be. um, and that it's okay for things to be in big groups together. It doesn't all have to be like this incredibly diverse guild. Nature doesn't usually do that a lot. A lot of times, nature works more in like, oh, here's a grove of aspens, and it's like, 3 acres of just aspens with some, brambles underneath, and I think when you have blocks of things, it's more powerful and it draws the animals in easier, as opposed to having things just kind of scattered everywhere here and there. And even like when things are flowering, like people who plant stuff for pollinators, they've they've found that if you want to plant like, let's say, bee balm for pollinators, which is a flower, if you plant that and you just have like a little bit here and there, um, let's say you had like 100 plants and you scattered them all over the place, it's not going to have the same effect as if they were all together in a huge patch. And that big patch of red will draw the pollinators in like nothing else will. So I like having groves of things. I like seeing a grove of chestnuts and a grove of persimmons, and pollination works better that way. And it's easier for the animals. And if you're harvesting fruit, it's so much easier if things are together. But I don't know.
I
I
love
think
that
really
perspective.
just pay a lot of attention, look around. That's what I always encourage people to do.
Well, I think that's why I like your book so much, is because it's not like this is the one way to do it. I mean, I think we have like backyard orchardist books, and we have, all these different, I don't know what the right word is, but how to kind of manage your property effectively. And your book kind of like forgoes all the rules, and it's like, look, try it, see what happens. And you're clearly very experimental. And I think that it really, it makes it possible to not invest $1 million into growing plants. Like just, take cuttings, see what takes root, get seeds, try and start them from seeds. It opens up a door that I think some people think, okay, you have to invest this amount and you have to plant it in just the right way. And you have to really focus on digging the right hole. And is it circle or is it square? And you're much less, maybe more fluid is the right word, about how you approach things. And it's like, try 10 things at once instead of one thing. And I think that's a really, I don't know, for me, that feels better, because I can't tell you how many plants I've killed, but people are like, oh, you're so good at gardening. It's like, I'm not, I do more than I kill. So that's the approach.
Totally. Yeah. And I think, it can work for some people. Everyone has different styles, because when we're working with land, it's really it's like cooking, you can just do it however you want. And some people like to follow a clear recipe and measure everything. And some people like to just throw stuff in the pan. And it's not like one way is better than the other. It's like, if you like to cook with a little bit of chaos, that's fine. If you like it to be more organized, that's whatever works for you, you know. So I'm more of a chaos. I like chaos. So
I think that's where we land too. So it's refreshing to find somebody who's on the same page there, because
yeah.
And once you put it in a book, it's officially a good answer, right? And also, I feel like your approach is more of a philosophy than it is like a rigid, mapping out of things. And there's so many nuggets of wisdom and encouragement and inspiration about just enjoying the process versus, getting so calculated. I think it's really great. I think what actually we've been thinking for several years since we got your book for the first time, we'd like to have you on the podcast. And then you wrote an email recently and Drew was like, oh, this is really good. And he even read it out loud to us. So I want to say, like, for people who are listening, get on your email list. I don't know how regular you are about your emails, but that one really stood out to us. And I think that people can get in touch with you and learn from you in a lot of different ways, right? What are the ways? How can people connect?
Yeah. My website is, you just look up Twisted Tree Farm and you'd find it. You can see my book on there, and I send out an email like maybe every 3 or 4 months. And I have a propagation class that I teach online. That'll be opening back up probably in a month or so. And yeah, I'd say you could find any way to connect with me by looking up Twisted Tree Farm on the internet. Yeah.
And you're starting to grow more trees to sell, right? Like, can you talk about that some?
Yeah, I've been doing that for a long time. That's how I made my living for the last, I don't know, dozen years or so. I have a nursery and I sell fruit and nut trees, and berry bushes and perennials. And that's what the website is really built for. But it also has like articles I've written and stuff like that. But yeah, that's how I make my living these days.
Well done. So, okay. Questions before we get off is, so right now it's the peak of winter. It's very cold. But we, know this, if like we're trying to plant trees, we're right now thinking, okay, what are we going to get in the ground before the spring starts to settle in? What would you say is the best kind of activity for this time of year in terms of growing trees?
Oh, there's so much to do every time of year. Right now, what I'm been doing a lot is I'm cutting stuff back. I'm cutting so much. I have like pretty big stands of willow that I coppice, and then I have all of these old orchards that I'm reclaiming. So it's like clearing brush, and I make a lot of biochar in the winter. So I'm just cutting and burning like all winter, basically. Yeah.
Are you using some of
there's
those
other things you can do. There's always stuff you can do. You can be starting plants inside right now. You can be rooting cuttings. You can be germinating seeds. You can do a lot of stuff in the winter. But if you want to be outside, I think cutting stuff and burning stuff is pretty fun. And
so, okay, what the air pruning beds, we've been experimenting different like shapes and sizes, and we've had some success over the last year or so. Do you have, I'm curious just about your setup. Do you have a lot of greenhouses or even hot houses or anything like that you're using infrastructurally? No.
I have like a little greenhouse just for fun where I grow like figs and tomatoes and stuff like that in it. But no, like as far as my production area, it's for the nursery, it's all outside. And if the trees are in a greenhouse, it kind of messes them up anyways, because they won't stop growing when the season ends, like the summer ends. And as the summer's winding down, the trees need to harden off. So they need to stop growing and turn all that tissue into wood so they will survive the winter. And if they're in a greenhouse, what they're going to do is they're just going to keep growing and growing well into the fall. And then sooner or later, it's going to freeze in that greenhouse. And and they're not going to be ready for it. And they're going to, all that growth that they put up is just going to die right back, and it won't be able to survive winter. So I keep everything outside all the time.
And what zone are you in?
5.
In 5. So you're like in a really limited, what normally I think people think of as a limited without a greenhouse zone. So that's pretty cool. I like that.
Perspectives. I mean, I know other people who live in like Quebec and stuff. And I'm like, well, they're very limited. And they're like, well, I know people even far, you know.
Well, it's interesting because we always want what we don't have, right? Like, because I grew up in the north, so maples and collecting maple syrup. I'm like, we tried. It's not happening down here, but
we just got upgraded to 8 now.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, what can we grow now?
Anyway, but that's fascinating. Very cool.
Yeah.
Did you have another question? I thought you were going to say something.
No, I'm just really interested. Like, I have a list of trees I want. So the next step for me is we've been trying to budget it out. Now we're headed to your website to see what you
do
got.
some shopping.
Yeah, I think things get sold out pretty fast there. There's still chestnuts left, but it's amazing. I open up sales December 1st, like that day, I sell out at least half our stuff.
That's awesome.
Kind of crazy. I feel like there needs to be more nurseries out there or something.
Yeah. With chestnut, are these Chinese? I mean, I'm assuming they're Chinese chestnuts, right?
Yeah, I grow mostly hybrid chestnuts. I grow several different strains of chestnut, but hybrid chestnuts, they're American, Japanese, and Chinese. Kind of have what I need as far as cold hardiness and disease resistance and nice nuts.
Okay.
We haven't had success with the chestnuts that we've purchased so far, so we might need to give yours a shot.
Really genetics. The genetics are much of difference with chestnuts and site. Like they need well-drained soil. But if you have good genetics and well-drained soil and you live in the United States, you should be able to grow chestnuts.
Yeah, we need to give it another go.
Yeah.
The straight Chinese ones are often not that great.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
I can talk about chestnuts for hours.
I know. Well, there's like, there's a lot I want to learn and know. And I just read not long ago, what was the book? One of Barbara Kingsolver's books. And they talked about chestnuts in there and how, American chestnuts can still be found randomly here and there. And so now I just want to go on a chestnut hunt and see, they don't survive for very long, but they do grow. So anyway.
Yeah, I find them all the time.
Do you? Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
That's awesome. We'll have to go hiking together. Anyway, well, it was really amazing talking to you. We've loved your book. This is actually a new copy, not our used beat up copy, but we love it. If you haven't purchased it already, you really need to get Trees of Power, just for inspiration and ideas, and the way you simplify it and kind of make it super tangible. And again, sort of whimsical. It's not like this cut and dry, like if you do this wrong, you're going to screw it all up kind of thing. It's like, it'll work. Something will work. And I like that attitude a lot.
Yeah. Just throw a lot of darts on the board.
That's right. That's the goal. Just hit as much onto the wall as you can. But yeah, you're inspiring a lot of people. And I think you're doing some pretty incredible things. And the trees, thank you. Or at least the lover of trees, thank you. So.
Well, thanks for having me.
Yeah. Thank you so much, and everybody go check out Akiva's website and book and buy some trees from them.
Yeah, if there are any left.
If there's any left.
Cool.